Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, my name is Michael, the ChiCityYaker. I specialize in Lake Michigan kayak fishing content. So if that's what you're interested in and you want to learn more, check out all the videos on my channel and make sure you subscribe while you're here. Now, today's video is going to be on how to choose the right fishing kayak for Lake Michigan. Now, there are a lot of options out in the market today. I mean, a ton. And it seems like every other month, there's a new kayak brand that comes onto the market with a new kind of a kayak or some hybrid variation of it. Neither here nor there. The point is that if you're looking to get into the sport, or if you're looking to go from maybe inland fishing to now stepping out to go after salmon and trout on Lake Michigan, you need to kind of look and see what's available out there for you, because there are certain kayaks that are better suited for the type of fishing that we're doing on Lake Michigan. And the goal in this video is to help you sift through everything that's out there and to narrow down your possible selection pool of kayaks that you should really be seriously considering if you're looking to do this type of fishing. So with that being said, let's talk about safety considerations as it pertains to picking a fishing kayak for Lake Michigan. Now, the first thing is that you want to focus on minimum 12 feet for this kayak. Why is that? Well, remember, on Lake Michigan, as much as we would love to fish on it when it's flat, calm, or just ideal conditions, that's not always the case. In some instances, the weather will change on you despite the predicted weather patterns, and now you're in a kind of a crazy situation with all these waves, inclement weather. It gets kind of gnarly out there. And in these situations, you want that 12-foot minimum length because it's going to help you track better out on the water. And that is super important for efficiency and for your safety out there. Because if you are caught in a bad situation, when you're dealing with waves pushing you all over the place, you're in a bit of a soup bowl, that 12 feet is going to track better. It's also going to handle those waves. Remember, if you're going into waves, you're going up to the peak of the wave and you're coming down the trough. And you're kind of just doing this pattern up and down, up and down. That 12-foot length is going to help you settle into those a lot better than a shorter. If you have a shorter kayak, it's going to be a lot more of a rocky situation. It's going to thereby lead you into possibly tipping out and over the kayak. So 12 foot is ideal. It handles better. So it's better for your efficiency and better for your safety at that point. All right, 12 feet. Next, let's talk about the two styles of kayaks here. Your sit on top and your sit inside kayaks. Now, sit insides are kind of what we've seen from a lot of those fun little places you go on the lake to go, like in a kayak adventure or whatever. You hop into it, you're sitting inside of it, and you just paddle around. Those you do not want for Lake Michigan. The minute you get some water into it, you are in trouble. Sure, you can have a little pump to pump some of the water out, but if you are in big waves, if you have a boat come across and their wash just comes all over you, their weight comes all over you, I mean, any reason why you would get water inside that kayak, it's going to sink and you're done and you're stranded out in the water. So do not, under any circumstance, take a sit inside kayak out into the open water. It's just not ideal. It's especially dangerous. Ideally, what you want here is a sit on top kayak because they are virtually unsinkable. I mean, they have scupper holes throughout the entire length of it. So as water comes into your kayak, it immediately drains out through those very same scupper holes, which keeps that kayak sitting on top of the water. Short of you getting water inside of an open hatch, or it leaks into an open hatch, or some kind of exposed hole on the kayak, that kayak is not going to go down. It's very, very difficult for a kayak to go sink down, which means that if you fall into the water, you have a chance to recover yourself because the kayak is still going to be there on top. You might have to just kind of finagle around with it, but you can re-enter your kayak and then go about getting back into shore or wherever, okay? So focus on 12 feet and sit on top kayaks. Out of the gate, that's the only thing you should be looking for as you're going about trying to choose the right kayak. Now let's talk about hull design, because this is another kind of a factor to consider, because every kayak has a different hull design, and these hull designs were designed for specific fishing purposes. There are hull designs that were made for kayaks to go and handle the river better than, say, a lake. There are hull designs like tri-hull designs that give you a more stable platform, similar to like a pontoon style platform where you just stand on it. It's really rock solid. You can stand, turn around, you can take a step or two front and back or whatever. So you get that. Then you have some kayaks that have a very narrow stream-like hull design that's almost like a hot knife cutting through butter on the water. And that's designed to give you a lot of speed at somewhat of an expense of stability. It's still plenty stable, but when you compare it to like a tri-hull design, it's vastly different, and you can feel it's noticeably different in terms of stability. So what is the right one when it comes to Lake Michigan? Well, you can go with either of the latter two that I spoke about. You can go with like a tri-hull design that's a little bit wider, a little more stable. You're not going to get quite as fast as the hull design that is made for open water, that's sleeker, but you get that stability. Now, of course, you can go the other route if you want that speed, which is going to pay off because you're going to get speed and it means you're going to be more efficient when you're trolling. You can go that route as well. You just have to get comfortable with the idea of understanding and learning its, first and secondary levels of support and stability. But there are anglers out here right now that are fishing out of those two kind of primary hull designs out of their kayaks on Lake Michigan, and both work. This is going to be more of a personal preference for you, what you would prefer, what you feel comfortable with. And this is only something you can really get a feel for by demoing kayaks, which I highly, highly recommend. Go to your nearest dealer, set up a demo day, get out in the water and give it a try so you can really get a feel for them. Now let's take a look here. And I'm going to start talking about really the most common kayaks that are on Lake Michigan. There's only really two brands by and large, not saying they're the only ones, but by and large, there are two brands that are widespread on Lake Michigan. And at least on our side of the lake, this could be different on some other aspects, but we're talking about where I'm at. So of course, here we have Hobie, well-known brand, an iconic kayak fishing brand. Majority of people here are going to be fishing out of the Hobie Pro Anglers. All right, now here we have the Pro Anglers. They've got the 360 series, which is their most current version of their drive, which is a 360 spinning drive. And then they still have some of their older version 180s. You can't really go wrong with either one of them. Now, the Pro Anglers are going to break the pockets. It's very expensive. Their pricing on these has gone up quite significantly. And we'll take a look at the kayak here. You can kind of see what it does. I'm sure you may be familiar with the brand, but Hobie is one, I would say, if I had to kind of weight it, I would say that right now it might be about they might have about a 60% market share in our area for anglers that are currently using their brand of kayaks for salmon fishing on Lake Michigan. It's widely popular, very stable. There's a lot of room. You have the benefit of the front hatch where you can store a lot of your fish. Your fish catches, your coho, your kings will fit in there. You can throw some ice in there. So a lot of guys will keep that as a onboard makeshift storage because they have the inner lining in there. You have ample room in your tank well for your tackle box or maybe a fish bag. And it just works. You got the big skeg here, which is really, really good. Helps you track, especially on those days where you got a crazy current in the water, or it's a little more wavier than normal. That skeg really helps a lot in keeping your tracking for your troll and for you to just kind of go in and out from the harbor out in the open water and vice versa. And then you've got your fins here. Easily, probably still the most comfortable seat on the market for any kayak. That executive chair seat, it's very, 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 very comfortable. So you can fish all day and not have any real issues. You got the lumbar support on the back of that. So overall, it's a very solid, very good option for many people out on the water. However, it's at the point now where you're pushing $5,800, not including taxes and shipping costs. So you're looking at probably over $6K. It's a very expensive buy at this point to get into it, but if you make that investment, this kayak will last you years. Another thing that's really good about the Pro Angler here is that it has a high weight capacity. I believe it's up at 500 pounds. So for bigger folks, bigger guys, you've got plenty of room on there to play with, to one, have room in it yourself, and then the weight capacity for you to have your gear, tackle, have some fish in the cooler. So it's a good option for the bigger guys. And now we'll move over and take a look here at the other option, which is the Outback. Now the Outback here is another good option for Lake Michigan. Now, one thing to be mindful about the Outback though, is what I would say is if you're a bigger guy, it's not going to be as friendly for you. It's a tight fit. The seat isn't quite as comfortable as in the Pro Angler. And as you can see here from the design, it sits lower in the water. So if you are in wavier conditions, you're going to get a bit more water coming in. So it can be a little bit more of a wet ride in certain instances. But it is a lot faster than the Pro Angler. You can get it up to speed a lot quicker. It's more nimble. So again, this is one of those areas where you're making a trade-off here. However, both of these perform well on Lake Michigan. So these are the most common Hobie Outbacks that you're going to find out on Lake Michigan. Now let's take a look at the second most popular brand out on Lake Michigan. and that is the Old Town series of sportsman kayaks. Now, I would say right now, they have about a 40% hold on the kayaks here on Lake Michigan, at least on our side again. So Hobie's about 60, Old Town's at about 40, and that's me being conservative. It might be even closer than that. It's going to be close to 50-50, I'm sure, because Old Town has made a great push for their kayaks. They're great products. I formerly was a Hobie owner and user, but I converted it over to Old Town and I loved it ever since, and have a great relationship with them. That being said, none of this video has any connection to Old Town whatsoever. This is all my honest 100% opinion. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. Now, the great thing about Old Town, and we're going to take a look here, is that their sportsman line gives you quite a few different options here. Now, we're not going to focus on the paddle kayaks. I didn't mention this earlier, but honestly, don't even bother with a paddle kayak for Lake Michigan. It is more work. It's more cumbersome. Don't even bother with it. You're only really going to focus on a pedal drive, or in this case, potentially a motor drive. We'll talk about that here in a second. Now, when it comes to looking at the Old Town options, again, you don't want a 10-footer. You're going to want a 12-foot minimum. So here we take a look at the Sportsman Pedal 120. Now, this gives you the pedal drive system. You have instant reverse with the pedals. It's not the Mirage drive system. They're very different. However, I found in testing that you can get up to speed quicker with the prop drive than I did with the Mirage drive. And then with this kayak, it handles Lake Michigan really well. You know, this to me is very comparable to the Compass in a lot of ways in terms of where I think it sits in the line. So I would kind of compare this in that comparison with the Compass. You have plenty of room on here. The tank well is plenty big for you to put your tackle box and like a little small fish bag, and you can get out here and be very successful on Lake Michigan with this kayak. Now let's move into the Sportsman Big Water PDL 132. Honestly, highly recommend this kayak. I own one myself. This thing is just a big water dominating kayak. It is pretty incredible how this rides and how it cuts through the water. Now, I don't think we'll be able to kind of see it in here. Oh, we can kind of see it here. So you can clearly tell from the front of the kayak, look how distinct that cut at the front is for that kayak, just how sharp that is. It's literally like a knife. It cuts through the water so well. This is easily the fastest kayak that I've been in terms of once I ramp up, you can cut through the water easy. You're cruising at 3.5 with very little effort. And it is just a all-around really nice kayak to fish out of. Now, you don't have a huge tank well. It's a little bit of a trade-off here. It's more of a tighter fit tank well. The cockpit itself is a little tight, but the trade-off here is you get a lot of speed. It handles the big water beautifully, waves, rough conditions. Now, the stability-wise, it's going to take a little getting used to because it has a secondary layer of stability. So it's just a matter of getting comfortable with it and understanding how it works, but it is very stable and it is a great kayak. And at the price point that it's at right now, it's not a bad option whatsoever. So we'll take a look here at the side. You can kind of see it comes with a real long rudder. So that helps with your turn radius. You can really cut and make tight turns really well in this kayak. Not to mention that there's so many mods that you can get for all of these kayaks on both brands. There's so many different third-party tools and products you can buy to modify various things throughout all of this, which just further enhance the kayak itself. But this Sportsman Big Water PDL 132 seriously should be a contender on your list for a kayak for Lake Michigan because of what it can do, its speed, how it handles the big water. It really is a joy to be in this one. I can't speak highly enough about this kayak. Now, up to this point, everything I've shown you and talked about has been pedal-driven kayaks, but I'd be amiss if I didn't bring up and share with you this kayak from Old Town, which is unique. Hobie doesn't have anything to compare with this. It was the first of its kind, and I still believe to this day it's the first of its kind, fully integrated trolling motor into a kayak design, the Old Town Sportsman Autopilot series. I own one myself. It's my primary kayak, and I absolutely love it. Now, it's quite a bit different from pedaling, and there are pros and cons to both. Now, if you are someone that is fishing often, I fish 3, 4, 5 times during the week because I'm shooting for content. I'm fishing a lot. As long as the weather allows, I'm out in the water throughout the fishing season. I fish far and above more than the average angler. And because of this, it made more sense for me to go to a motor because at the frequency that I'm out in the water, physically, you wouldn't be able to handle 3, 4, 5 days of going 10, 14, 15 miles out in the summer for those longer summer trips. It would eat at you physically. So for me, it made sense to go this route. And this is a viable option for those of you that maybe have lower back issues or maybe have trouble with your legs. You can just get the motor and it alleviates that potential issue. So you have the accessibility to go out and fish. Now, because you're having a motor here, there's more involved with it. You have to get a battery. You have to outsource that and find the battery for you. You're going to have to pull out the motor in and out for your trips because you don't want to travel with that in the slot because the vibration on the road, you don't want anything to kind of break apart or anything like that. So these are things you have to kind of understand that when you get this kayak, you're going to have to do just a little bit more work. However, your life on the water is a lot easier because you're just clicking the button, you're moving around. The foot pedals control the rudder in the back, and as well as the remote can turn the trolling head in whatever direction. And that I mentioned that it has spot lock, which is amazing because then you can just spot lock somewhere to do vertical jigging, or maybe you're going to fish for crappie and you want to fish a dock. You could lock yourself somewhere and just pitch around and sit in the water and chill out, do whatever it is that you want to do. Now, the great thing about this kayak is look at the price point here. Let's just say $4,400 for this kayak. And then if we come back to the Pro Angler, we'll see that their current pricing is significantly more than the Autopilot, which has a complete motor. Now, yes, you do have to buy a battery, which is going to be a few $100 depending on what size battery you get. But for just getting the kayak and a motor, you're still under the price of the kayak that you get that you still have to pedal power. Something to think about. I'm not trying to poop on Hobie, but as a matter of pricing, I mean, come on. Now, the great thing about the Autopilot is that this is the 120, so it's 12 foot. I have the 136, which is 13.6 feet, is that you have a lot of room. The tank well is massive. You could put a crate, a bag, a cooler. You can put like 3 or 4 different things back here, depending on what they are. Tons of room. It's really, really incredible. You have a lot of leg room to stretch, stand up. You can move around. You can put stuff over there. Maybe it's another couple of lures or a tackle box right there you want to have quick access to. You have so much room. And especially in the 136, you have even more room. It's an extended cockpit area where I've been able to lay 2 or 3 big kings in that cockpit, you know, lengthwise, and they're sitting in there comfortably. So you have a lot of comfort and room in this kayak as a whole. And it's really great. I can't say enough good things about it, how much I enjoy it, having it and fishing out of it. It's just great. You also have some of these bonus things here, like you can have these pre-molded slots here. So if you're going to put a power pole or something like that, you get the remote that comes with it so you can steer. Just a lot of good features here on the kayak. These are essentially the majority of kayaks that are currently being fished out of on Lake Michigan that I see on a regular basis. It's not to say that there aren't other brands that people aren't using, and it's not to say that there aren't other brands that wouldn't work. But what I am saying is this is by and large the 2 main brands and the models that majority of anglers kayak fishing Lake Michigan are running. And it's for a reason, because they work really well for Lake Michigan. And that is what I want to share with you. And of course, this is ultimately a very personal decision. You have to take into account the cost. When you get these bigger kayaks, the Pro Angler, the Autopilot 136, these are bigger, heavier kayaks. So you have to think about how you're going to transport it. Are you going to car top it? Are you going to get a trailer? Where are you going to store it all? So again, I understand that a lot of these other tangibles and factors you're going to have to think about in terms of which is going to be the right kayak for you. But at least, again, I was able to kind of narrow it down for you so you can now look for either these or something similar to what these kayaks bring to the table to help you get out in the water safely and fish it very effectively to get your salmon and trout. So hopefully you guys found this video of use. Let me know any questions about kayak choices down below in the comments. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.